New York Times reporting it has obtained secret memos which it says, quote, illuminate the origins of the court's now routine shadow-docket rulings on presidential power. Joining us now on those not-so-secret memos, Fox News legal editor Carrie Urban. You know, I was thinking the last big leak out of the Supreme Court was Dobbs. And that was 4 years ago now.
Yeah.
How time flies. And now this. Where's the stuff coming from?
And there was another one between Dobbs and this one, and that one was on presidential immunity. That was in 2024, I believe, and it was a memo that detailed how the chief was going to handle the decision. And within that same report, and that was also from the New York Times, was one about, there was some information about how he had reassigned an opinion from Justice Alito to himself because of the so-called flag controversy that was happening at his home at the time, if you remember that one. And so we're looking at 3 major leaks over the last 4 years, which is really unheard of for the U.S. Supreme Court.
Okay, so why?
It's a great question, Sandra. And look, I think these leaks tend to go in one direction, and it is to undercut what the conservative wing of the Supreme Court is doing.
Oh, you don't say. Carrie Urban, Fox News legal editor, reacting to this understanding that we have had these leaks here recently. And the leaks always do end up going in the same way. And it's very frustrating because for me, the Supreme Court is evidence that maybe we still can have nice things in the messy atmosphere that is politics. The Supreme Court in the past seems like they have risen above that, but we're getting to the bottom of some of these leaks and some of the ways that the Supreme Court isn't functioning as per usual, and we're doing so with a wonderful book that is for sale today, and I encourage you to check it out. It's entitled Alito, the Justice Who Reshaped the Supreme Court and Restored the Constitution, and we are privileged to have Mollie Hemingway, the author of Alito, on with us right now. Mollie, thank you for being with us today. Congratulations on your book, and hoping that you have a great release day.
Thank you, Annie. It is wonderful to be back with you.
Well, thank you so much. You know, I was kind of saying, like, the Supreme Court is my political, this is how we have nice things, but now it looks like maybe this is why we can't have nice things. You've uncovered and brought a lot of attention and spotlight to, specifically with the Dobbs decision that was released, how the function of the Supreme Court justices among themselves isn't as it always has been in the past.
Well, for the longest time, the court, it's always had members who are in fierce disagreement with each other. But they usually constrained that disagreement to their written opinions or dissents, and it didn't go beyond that. What happened with the Dobbs leak really did fundamentally change some of that collegiality on the court. But I am able to uncover in this book, Alito, much about what happened there. So the leak was unprecedented. Never before had a full draft opinion been leaked. Immediately, the lives of the justices who had signed on to the Dobbs decision were under threat. People had to wear bulletproof vests. They had to be moved to secure locations. They had to face down people who were trying to assassinate them. And some of the justices were shocked to learn that the dissenting justices hadn't really gotten to work on their dissent by the time that the draft was leaked. And a decision is not final until it's officially read from the court, and that comes with the dissent. So they needed to get it done quickly. And they literally had like 50 years to work on it, but the arguments had been from December that previous year. And so they asked them to do it, and instead they slow-walked it for another 7 weeks. And these people were facing daily attacks and threats at their homes and against their children and their spouses. And I tell the inside story of precisely how they slow-walked and delayed this, even as their colleagues' lives were under threat. You can imagine it's difficult to be collegial in that kind of environment.
Oh, certainly. The book is Alito. It is out today. The author is Mollie Hemingway, and she's speaking with us right now. I think to myself, okay, a slow walking of something. Everything we see in Congress is if you're in the opposition party, you're just supposed to hinder and delay. Look at a DHS shutdown that we're dealing with right now. It's just, how can you be obstinate and defiant in the minority seems to be the play there. But the Supreme Court, there's an expectation there among those 9 justices and the people who work within that department that they're going to kind of rise above that. And as you're pointing out here, in the Dobbs decision, there were lives being seriously threatened while they were waiting for this ruling to come out. Can you talk to me a little bit about how your book, Alito, addresses this and why you've chosen Justice Alito to highlight the kind of person he is and his contribution to the court?
Well, like you, Annie, I've always just been interested in the Supreme Court, and I co-authored, and I believe we came on your show to talk about it with Carrie Severino, a book on the Kavanaugh confirmation. We interviewed a ton of people there, including a ton of people on the court, and they kept talking about, why does nobody talk about Alito? He's this giant. Nobody talks about him. They always talk about the other justices, and he's just kind of flying under the radar, being this massively influential and consequential justice. So pretty much from that moment, I knew I wanted to write about him. And, you know, when you look at some of the really important decisions that have come down, whether it's on gun rights or First Amendment freedoms, religious liberty in particular, it's this guy who's behind the effort to improve the jurisprudence from what it was for decades on the court, which was basically a bunch of justices who were kind of frustrated at the slow pace of Americans adopting their liberal views. And so they would just say, well, we're just going to say it's in the Constitution. And Alito, who's been able to kind of cobble together majorities, whether he was in the minority as a conservative or in the majority. And his story is so deeply American and interesting. He's a fascinating figure. He's like, you know, like Scalia said when Alito joined the court, how remarkable, a shy Supreme Court justice, you know, but people need to know about him. And that's why I wanted to write the book.
Well, the book is entitled Alito, so it should be easy for people to find the justice who reshaped the Supreme Court and restored the Constitution. I do want to ask you, there's a lot of big cases, especially having to do with our elections and voting rights and all of that are pending. I do feel as though you know where at least 3 of the votes are going to go on the majority of the rulings that they have to address. There are a couple that are in the middle, Amy Coney Barrett and the Chief Justice potentially, that you do have to wait and see, and they will be the deciding votes on a lot of these very constitutionalist-based questions that they're faced with. Are the disagreements that are taking place right now between 3 justices who are generally going to take more of a liberal activist position with their ruling, is it irreparable at this point in time? Are they able to work together and to come together with rulings that have strong, fiery dissents and to present both sides of the issue to the American people upon ruling?
Well, I do want to point out that Justice Kagan really is different from Sotomayor and Jackson in that people on the court do respect her jurisprudence. Okay. They do find her legal arguments to be compelling. And she is craftier than the other 2 about figuring out things that she can get some of the other justices to agree on. The more interesting debates are between the 6 Republican appointed justices and even among the 5 originalists, which are all of them except for Roberts. You don't know where they're going to be, but I do think that when Thomas and Alito agree on something, you can be pretty confident that's probably the most defensible position. They've been on the court for a long time. Thomas is more of a libertarian originalist. Alito is the conservative originalist. When they are in agreement, it's usually an indication that that's where the originalist should be.
Well, Mollie Hemingway, we wish you great success on your book, Alito, the Justice Who Reshaped the Supreme Court and Restored the Constitution. And we encourage you to come back on, especially as these rulings are given to us going in through June. I don't know how long it'll take. Do you anticipate slow walking on any of the rulings that might be on the docket right now?
Well, that was reported last week that they're slow walking the racial gerrymandering case because if the decision comes out now, or, it should have come out well before now, but if they can slow walk it to the end of June or even close to that, it will help Democrats in elections in the midterms. So we're starting to see a pattern of the liberal justices throwing tantrums and slow walking as a political response to losing cases.
Mollie, I don't know if you have the answer to this, but are those contrived plans is there an influence on the justices to do that, or do you think that's just an idea that they have themselves?
I mean, I truly don't know. I would not be shocked if this were being discussed outside the court, but at least Kagan is savvy enough to know how this can help things inside the court for her team.
At least Kagan. I like it. Mollie Hemingway, thank you for being with us. I hope that the book is a great success. Definitely something that more Americans could stand to learn from. Your book, your research is so in-depth. Your journalism is fantastic. And we're grateful that you share it with us here on our show. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you so much, Annie.
Take care. Bye-bye. The editor-in-chief at The Federalist, Mollie Hemingway, senior journalism fellow at Hillsdale College, Fox News contributor as well. The Federalist is a very trustworthy publication, if you will. I guess it's still a publication if you read it online most of the time. But Mollie Hemingway, so well-spoken and so well-researched on, especially when it comes to these Supreme Court justice issues, stories, and concerns. Let's take a break. Ethan, sports and local next here on the Annie Frey Show. And don't forget, we're asking you that YouTube poll. Should the FCC do something about professional sports broadcasting on all these different streaming platforms? How frustrating is that? Does it really require government intervention, though? Or would you just say, the free market will decide? Vote yes or no on the Annie Frey YouTube channel. And keep it right here for Ethan, sports and local next. A reminder that when we have great guests like Mollie Hemingway, Will Chamberlain, Jim Talent, Eric Burleson, all of them on the show today, we produce podcast episodes of just those interviews that you can access wherever you get podcasts from. But if you're unfamiliar, just go to the Odyssey app, AUDACY, and find those podcasts right there. We'll be back with Ethan next.